Is the world about to end? What was that noise? Just kidding. Today we are going to be talking about the apocalypse and different modalities of the apocalypse. The apocalypse. Not only is the apocalypse going to happen, but it's going to happen in different ways. Or not. But before I get too far into it, please hit like, please subscribe, share in social media, and as I'm going through it, please comment below and let me know what you think. Okay, let's dive into the apocalypse. So this all came up because I was watching a TikTok channel. I don't actually have a TikTok account, but somebody recommended this channel to me, so I checked it out. And I'm glad I did. It's a JK Ultra. So go check it out. I watched the Apocalypse series on JK Ultra and the Earth Shift series and as well as the Alien series. I recommend them all. You know, each video is like 3 minutes long. And she has, you know, the whole series on each of those topics. So on the apocalyptic series, she dives into, she combines various things. She combines like Dolores Cannon with Nostradamus and various other things to create a coherent narrative of what she believes or what, you know, she thinks might be possible. And, you know, she is putting a date for the apocalypse in the late 2020s or early 2030s. Now, my recollection of Nostradamus is that his final date is like 1,000 years from now. So I don't think that he gave a date for the apocalypse. But that's really interesting that she is saying that particular date, because that date kind of comes up a lot, and that whole time frame comes up a lot. And there are different modalities of the apocalypse that all go, and all, you know, the apocalypse seems to happen right around that same time frame, you know, from 2028 to, you know, 2032, let's say. So I thought that was really fascinating, and I wanted to talk about that for a few minutes with you because it's the end of the world. That's worth talking about. Or not, who knows? I don't think the world is going to end, but it might. Okay, so she is talking about the Earth shifting into the fifth dimension. That is, you know, that's the Dolores Cannon thing. That's the kind of a new agey idea that Gaia is transitioning into the fifth dimension, and she is going to take as many humans with her as are ready to go. And that means they will ascend to a higher level of being, a more spiritual, more peaceful, loving existence. And potentially the people that aren't ready will just stay in the third dimension. Or they, you know, something else. I don't know exactly what will happen. I think the idea is they will just stay on the Earth as it is, but the, you know, Earth, the ones that are ready, that will go with Gaia, with the intelligent Earth, to the next level of existence. So that is very interesting, and that is one modality that comes up a lot in the research, in my research, this idea of transitioning to the fourth dimension. Now, a different modality for that, because I'm going to be talking about different modalities of the apocalypse today. A different modality of that same idea is what Ra puts out. If you're familiar with the Law of One, in the Ra manuscript, the Ra contact, there is a being or a group of beings, possibly a whole race of beings that are speaking as one, called Ra, and there's this channeled information from this entity or collection of entities called Ra. And Ra talks about transitioning to the fourth dimension. Ra does not call it the fifth dimension. He calls it the fourth dimension, or it calls it the fourth dimension. But it's the same idea put forth in a somewhat different way. He talks about the harvest, which is the same basic idea as the Dolores Cannon idea of transitioning to the fifth dimension. And Dolores Cannon didn't invent that. That is what her researches have led her to. And she is not alone in that. There are others that think that. So those are two modalities that think basically the same thing. So what are the other modalities? Well, let's talk about alien abductions. Yes, if you are familiar with alien abductions and the more nuts and bolts take on it, not necessarily the Barbara Lamb, Dolores Cannon take, but the nuts and bolts take on it, I'm talking about like Bud Hopkins and David Jacobs. Well, their patients are telling them something different. They don't get the spiritual woo woo dimensional stuff. And when I say woo woo, I don't mean that in a derogatory way because I believe in the woo woo. The woo woo is real. But that's not what they were getting. Their results were that the aliens were here. They're creating hybrids. And by the way, I don't disbelieve any of what any of their research. I think that they have some really compelling research, especially David Jacobs. And because he's gone further and he lived longer to get more information. I highly recommend his book, Walking Among Us. You might never sleep again after you read that, but it's a great read. And it's all about how the aliens are creating hybrids and how the people, the contactees or abductees that have been interacting with them and have been contributing genetic material for these hybrids are now helping the hybrids socialize and integrate into society so they can perform whatever it is they're here to perform, whether that's a takeover or whatever. David Jacobs thinks it's a takeover. He doesn't see any other possibility than that it is a takeover. Why else would they want to keep it silent and secret? Now, of course, why would they have let him publish that book if that's what's going on? Because they had to have been aware that he was doing that. And I think he does address that in one interview, but he never really goes very far into that. So I'm very curious about that because I don't doubt what he says in the book, but the fact that they let him say it might mean something. But at any rate, the visitors, the aliens, are here to do something. They call it the shift. And one of the things that they are training their abductees to do is crowd control. Crowd control when the shift happens. And the shift is some sort of apparently apocalyptic event that's going to happen in the near future. It's always the near future. And when the apocalypse happens, the abductees are being trained, and this is one of the various things that they are being trained to do. In crowd control, people are going to be running out in panic because the apocalypse is happening, and these abductees are steering these panic masses into the UFOs, and the UFOs are going to take off with them. That is very interesting. They are ascending into the skies because there is a massive shift happening, an apocalyptic shift happening in the near future. And it's always the very near future, a few years later. Now, these abductions in the modern era that we know of began like in the 60s and 70s. And so assuming that the aliens weren't lying, I think a lot of those people are gone now. So I don't see how the aliens could have been truthful, telling people they were going to actually usher people aboard UFOs during the apocalypse. So I could go off on a rant about the aliens being truthful or not. But let's just say they are. Let's just say the aliens are generally being honest about this. Whatever. Then the apocalypse has to happen. The shift has to happen in the reasonably near future. So the late 2020s or early 2030s would sound about right to allow some of these aged abductees to usher people aboard UFOs. If that is their function, if that is what they're being trained to do, if they are going to do that within their lifetimes, it would have to be pretty soon. And that date would make sense. That spectrum of dates would make sense. So that's another modality of the apocalypse, people ascending, leaving the planet around that date. So there are other modalities for the apocalypse. There is, of course, the rapture, and the ascension. Which is very similar. People being lifted up from the earth. People have all sorts of different dates. I'm not going to give a date on that. But there are all sorts of different dates for that. And yeah, the same basic idea. The good people will be lifted up and taken somewhere. And the bad people will not. They will stay here. Another modality for the apocalypse is the Mayan apocalypse that was said to have occurred in 2012, or which was supposed to have occurred in 2012. And a lot of people were very worried about that. Well, according to JK Ultra, there has been some tweaking of the dates and a new understanding of the Mayan calendar, that we were reading it wrong, and the real date for the apocalypse is somewhere like 2028. So that's several modalities for the apocalypse, some of them putting the date or suggesting that the date of the apocalypse might be around that same general time frame. Now, I think that's super fascinating because they are all saying very similar things. The version of the apocalypse is shockingly similar. The world's going to end. The certain people will be chosen to survive the world and will ascend or go somewhere else, be taken to a different planet, a different dimension, a spiritual realm. What does that mean? What does that mean? Why? It seems to me, and this is just me saying this, but it seems like there is some intelligence or group of intelligences that are putting this into people's heads, that this event is going to happen and that we should prepare for it. And they're giving us various different ways and different schools of thought, different modalities about how it could happen, about the specifics of it happening. But I don't believe any particular one necessarily, because there are so many different versions saying much the same thing. So that is a narrative that is being put forth. It seems like to me that some intelligence or group of intelligences is putting forward this narrative. Now, that doesn't mean it's a false narrative. It could be a true narrative. But somebody is putting forward this narrative that the world is going to end and that we should prepare for it in various ways. What does that mean? That is very important, possibly. If the world is going to end, obviously that's critically important. If it's not ending, then some intelligence or group of intelligences want us to think it is and want us to act as if it might be. Now, when you get into the alien abduction stuff, the aliens seem very worried about the state of the planet, and they are trying to encourage people to treat the planet better. That comes up a lot. I won't go into that now, but that is a common motive or a common thread in alien abductions. So how would that make sense if they were part of it? If those aliens that were saying that, if they were part of this narrative, how would that make sense? Because if we think we're going to abandon the planet, or the planet is going to be destroyed in a few years, we have very little reason to take care of it. So there seems to be a competing interest there, competing agendas of outside intelligences. So I find that fascinating, especially if some of these aliens are some of the ones that are involved in the shift, as David Jacobs calls it. So what does that mean? I don't know. I have no idea. I would love to know your thoughts in the comment section below. I think this is a very interesting and important topic. I hope to talk more about the narratives that the phenomenon puts out. Because the phenomenon does put out various narratives. And it puts it out in various ways, nuts and bolts ways, spiritual ways, dimensional ways. It puts these things out into the ether. And people believe various modalities, whatever they were raised in or whatever they gravitate to. Now, that doesn't mean any of these are wrong necessarily, or that the overall apocalypse isn't going to happen. But it if you can't believe any specific narrative because they're putting out several different narratives and they can't all be true, that means that each individual one may be false. Maybe one is the real one, the others are false, the others are giving some basic idea of what's happening. But I don't know. I just think that it's important that we learn what the hell is going on. If we can interact with the phenomenon in a positive way and try to get to the bottom of this, I think that could be really useful and very helpful for everyone. So anyway, those are my thoughts on it. I am perplexed by all this. I am very intrigued and nervous about it. I am not planning on going anywhere in the later 2020s or early 2030s. I don't think anything is going to happen. Another modality that I forgot about was wormwood, and the asteroid Apophis, or whatever it's called. So, and that's which is going to come right around then. So, a different modality, a very scientific, very immediate reality. For much the same thing. Anyway, I didn't want to leave without also getting that other modality, but I've given you, 5 or 6 or whatever modalities saying the same thing, essentially, and some of them with very similar time frames. So what does that mean? I don't know. I mean, Apophis is out there. I mean, the aliens didn't make that up, unless they made that and is sending it to us for some reason, or is creating that on our instruments. But interesting stuff. So yeah, let me know what you think, and give this video a big thumbs up if you would. I really appreciate it. Please hit the subscribe button. That would be awesome. And if you do, the bell next to it to be notified of future videos. Comment below. Let me know what you think about all this apocalyptic madness. Yeah, because I am very intrigued and nervous about this topic. I don't think anything is going to happen, but I'm going to stay frosty at the end of this decade. I'm telling you that. Yeah, so let me know what you think. Subscribe, share on social media. I'm trying to get the word out about what's going on this channel. I would love your help on that. So yeah, if you could, that'd be awesome. And until next time, see you later. Cosmic Road out.